Welcome to NAIOP Solution Series program titled Powerful Marketing Technology Tools You Need to Know About. My name is Sandy Hetson, and I will be your host. The Solution Series programs are available at no cost to NAIOP members. These mini webinars run less than 30 minutes, and the goal of each program is to provide you with some quick tips and insights to help you succeed in today's tough business environment. We encourage you to drive the content. Please send us an email to solutions@naiop.org to let us know what topics and presenters you would like to hear from in future programs. Advance to the next slide, please. With us today is Robert McLeod, President and founding partner of Neoscape. With more than 15 years in the real estate industry, Rob is the creative force behind Neoscape's award-winning integrated marketing solutions, and his aesthetic influence and innovative style are seen in all aspects of the studio's work. Since founding Neoscape in 1995, Rob has collaborated with some of the biggest names in real estate: Equity Office Properties, Hines, the Blackstone Group, Boston Properties, Jones Lang LaSalle, to name a few, to tell the stories of their highest profile projects. Welcome, Rob. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Sandy. I'm excited to be here today talking about powerful marketing technology tools you need to know about. And before I get into some of the latest trends, I'd like to give you a little background on Neoscape. As Sandy mentioned, we were founded in 1995. We're headquartered here in Boston, and we have a New York presence and a UK presence. And what we do primarily for our clients is help them with marketing and visualization services. We are an open and collaborative studio, and we like to invite our clients really into our process, and we feel that we get much better solutions for them by making them a creative partner. Over the past couple of years, we've really been in an evolving market, and I think everybody is aware of how it's impacted your business, real estate, architecture, design, quite dramatically. And I think we've all been asked to do more with less. For many of our clients, we've been asked to focus on existing assets as development had kind of slowed for a couple of years. And we also made sure that we were coming at every project with a strategic mindset and making sure that we really had the big picture clearly in focus for our clients and helping them create tools that were going to be very powerful for them. We've also seen a change in that experiential marketing, things that are much more about an adaptive, flexible, user-driven experience, has been becoming more the norm, and we're really excited by that trend because we think it makes the content more engaging, and I think it helps our clients differentiate their offerings in a very crowded marketplace. So what we're going to talk about today are some of the trends that we've seen and some of the solutions we've come up with to kind of touch on those trends and where we think things are going. The things I'm going to talk about today, mobile being the most important and really the biggest paradigm shifter that we've seen. I'm also going to talk about virtual design build, which is a process of really creating things in 3D that aren't even designed yet to advance conversations about leasing and tenancy and occupancy of buildings. I'm going to talk about multi-touch interactives and the evolution from kind of old school interactive applications. And finally, I'll touch on cinematic films really as a migration, an evolution, if you will, from the old kind of virtual tours that were so prevalent over the last decade or so. So as we get into mobile, I thought it would be important to kind of define what I mean by mobile. And mostly what I'm talking about are smartphones, tablets like the iPad, and mobile web experiences. And I thought I'd kind of start by going through some of the numbers so that people understand what's behind this trend and kind of where it's headed. So starting first with Apple's products, the iPhone, iPod, and iPad, more than 15 million iPads sold in 2010, more than every tablet PC ever sold. In 2010, it was a $9.5 billion market. They currently own 90% of the market share. Why is this important? Well, it's important when we're defining reach. How many customers can you get to by deploying your solutions or your messaging mobily? But right now, the iOS platform has about a 38 million user reach in the United States. Mobile phones, smartphones, about 234 million mobile phones in the U.S., 70 million or so are smartphones from Google, RIM, Apple. And it's important to understand how many people are actually downloading apps and accessing the web from these devices. The numbers are climbing every day. and it's a really important way to reach your audience, social networking, mobile web, and application development. Media tablets, again, the most predominant one right now in the news and in the marketplace is Apple's iPad. About 20 million tablets sold in 2010, 208 million forecast to sell in 2014. This graph clearly shows kind of where they're being sold in the predominant markets. And if you can look over the next 2 to 3 years, it's a very, very rapid rate of adoption, which ultimately will level off as this device matures a little bit. But I think the good news here is that while the market feels still quite new and fresh, it is, and that's good news because you'll see in a couple of slides that a lot of people in our industries are still struggling to find out how these devices fit into their mobile strategy. The good news is the numbers all indicate this is obviously not a fad. It's something that's changing the way we work and interact with information on a daily basis, and it's up to the minute at our fingertips is what is expected from the audiences we're all addressing. So how does this impact my business? How do I capitalize on this as a business? There's a lot of questions out there. What do the numbers mean? Again, I touched on it means that things are trending upward. That's great. And so although the iPad came out a year ago and other tablets have followed, it doesn't mean if you haven't done anything yet that you're too late to the game. It really gives you more time to develop a strategy and really understand, well, how does mobile fit my business? And how can I make the most of it? And how do I take advantage of this audience and their tendencies to want everything at their fingertips? And what is my mobile strategy? Do I even have one? Does our business have one? Have we thought it out? Have we stopped for long enough to kind of put something down? We get asked by clients all the time, oh, geez, iPad's great, but what do I create for it? And all of that starts with what are you trying to achieve? And these are really important questions. I'm obviously not going to answer them all in this presentation today, but it's important that companies and organizations and individuals stop for long enough to ask themselves these questions and be very thoughtful about how to proceed with a mobile strategy. What we're all trying to do is give people quick access to intentionally limited information. It's a different way to experience information, and so it's not replicating the web experience necessarily. It may be something that's more focused and more targeted and more timely because it can get updated frequently. It's also really easy to share this information through a variety of means, whether it's social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And it's great for companies to engage Facebook and Twitter because you can collect a lot of info as well as put information and marketing messaging out. And right now, the market's really dominated by two major players, so it's important to kind of think about those players as you're developing a strategy. Right now, Apple kind of, I think, definitely leads the charge with tablets and with smartphones in terms of penetration. Android is, neck and neck with Apple in terms of smartphone. Different users, and it's important to really look at who's using which platform and where your clientele and your audiences lie within that. And a couple of broad strategies are to develop a web app that works equally well using web standards on both platforms, or to develop kind of custom apps for each. So often you'll see people roll out an iOS version of an app first and then follow shortly thereafter, or at the same time with an Android version. That's a great strategy. Again, it's based on understanding your specific audience. In other cases, it might be the Android app goes out first, followed by iOS, and potentially something for BlackBerry, again, depending on who your market is. Some of the things that we've done and some of the ways that we've helped clients develop mobile apps, I'm going to walk through again very quickly. We recently did a portfolio app for Thor Equities. And really this project started as a way to feature, showcase a project, 693 Fifth Avenue, the Takashimaya building in New York City that they had purchased. And so we created an app that really focused on that. It also gives you property information about 30 other properties that they own. So you can get details, highlights, location, floor plans, etc. from this app. It taps into Google's API to use their mapping functionality. It's a great way to get information out about a real estate project and a development opportunity. This was also done in conjunction with rolling out 110 iPads internally to their own staffs and brokers, and to select external brokers in the community. And so, they embarked on a pilot program to test the effectiveness of using an iPad to help drive people to their properties. It's been very successful. It's only been out there for a couple of months, but the feedback has been tremendous. People really like being able to take all of their marketing information on the go with them. It's great for one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-three situations where you have a captive audience. And quite honestly, you can just hand them the device and let them explore it at their own pace. This is also an app that's available through the iTunes store for free download. So anybody with one of these devices can get this information. And once they have the app, updates will automatically come to their iPad, and they can get up to the minute or frequent updates for the projects. Another way that we've used the iPad is deploying something that's more of a portfolio app that's about searching for available space, and this is something we did for Equity Office. And I'll touch a little bit more on this later on when I go through a quick case study. But essentially, we developed a website that lets people search Equity's entire Boston portfolio to find out all the vacant space that they have. And we developed that first for the web, and then the next step was to make it iPad friendly. And so we customized that website for use on a mobile device, and we helped them with a pilot program of rolling out about 20 iPads to select brokers in the Boston community, so that they could take this database and this web experience with them to all of the properties and have all of the information at their fingertips. Again, it's been very, very successful. And it's important to point out, again, that mobile apps as a single tactical response or marketing effort are not necessarily going to be as successful if they're not part of a broader campaign. So as you can see in this Equity tool, you can drill down into specific properties. You get 3D stacking diagrams. You can touch different floors. It will bring up floor plans and tell you everything the database has about that particular space, when it becomes available, what the square footage, if there are test fits, it will show you those. And so again, it's a really seamless extension of the web experience. For another client developing very high-end condominiums in Chicago, we helped them build a finish selection tool. So after somebody's purchased a condominium, they go through a process of selecting the finishes for several of the spaces, bathrooms and kitchen, in the kitchen in the unit. And so we developed a presentation to help them do that on an iPad. So interacting with 3D visualization of those spaces, they can pick finishes. So they can select cabinet finishes, backsplash, counters, flooring types. And again, it becomes very intuitive, and it's something that the end user, the buyer, is doing themselves. They're not being led through by a guide. They're being handed the device and asked to explore their design options. And it's a great way for them to be their own designer and to explore the many options that are available to them. Other ways that our clients have answered the question of, well, how does this fit my business, is to do something that's more in line with a corporate magazine, if you will. So something that could be a digital monograph, for instance, if you're an architecture firm, or something that's a digital brochure. iPad is a great way to deploy things like that because it can be fully interactive. You can update it. Once you have an installed user base, the updates get pushed to those end users. So it's a great way to be more contemporary with your marketing efforts and maybe save on printing and more traditional costs. Maybe it changes how you approach marketing to begin with, and so you spend less money on printing and you spend more digitally, and it gives you a certain amount of flexibility and ways to adapt to changing markets and changing or progress with the project. The next section I'm going to get into is virtual design build. This is something that we do for a lot of clients, and often it's to help them with custom presentations or rapid virtual prototyping. We've been doing it predominantly for office, retail, and mixed use. And essentially, it's a way to give somebody a test drive of a real estate development, how they might fit into it and how it might work for their organization without spending any money on construction. So for office, it could be seeing, can I actually fit my staff in? Will will my corporate culture overlay onto this project appropriately? For retail, it might be showing people how their exact brand will fit into a location. To talk about that, I'm going to use a couple of examples. The first one is a very urban example in New York City. It's the retail location near Times Square that has tremendous signage opportunities. And so before an architect's even involved, our client needs to be having conversation with potential tenants. And so we work closely with them to develop some typical scenarios that we think might represent their client base. So we want to show an apparel company. We want to show a sporting goods company. We want to show other potential tenants that we think are likely candidates for them to go after. So we start by developing these kind of generic scenarios, and you see a couple here, different perspectives of two kinds of tenants. One's a sporting goods, and one is a watch company, and one is an apparel company. And from here, we can customize these for a specific tenant. So if you're going after Dick's Sporting Goods, we can make it look like a Dick's Sporting Goods without having to have an architect design it, by reviewing their other properties and being thoughtful about how we express their kind of corporate culture into an architectural form through signage and through other representations of merchandise. And so it's a great way to very quickly develop some imagery to advance leasing conversations. It's been remarkably successful for our clients because it allows them to react much more quickly than getting into a longer process with an architect. Obviously, ultimately, architects will design the actual space, but this is a great tool for advancing conversations quickly and hopefully getting people to make decisions because they can understand something because it's been presented visually as opposed to in plans or sections or elevations. In the next example, you're seeing a base photograph, and we're just simply overlaying a couple of different tenants into this space. And again, it's really easy for people to understand how their brand fits when they can see it fitting. Although I'm not going to show an animation here, this is a technique that really lends itself to being animated because you can create a really dynamic sense of how a project might build out and how a test fit might come together for a client by using animation techniques. We will give you a link at the end of the presentation so you can investigate some of these animated solutions a little bit further on your own time. So now I want to talk a little bit about multi-touch interactives. We've been doing interactives, and the industry's been doing them for many, many years. Multi-touch and more user-driven experiences have become the norm, and they're usually an integral part of a larger marketing strategy. So they're not the be-all, end-all, but they're an important point. And what we're seeing how we see them trending is it's more about a user experience and less about just delivering information. These can be, user-driven or guided. Typically, they're database-driven, and they tend to be more experiential in nature. And so it's really trying to connect to people on an emotional level and get them invested in a project and learning about it on their own and really delving into the areas that are important to them, as opposed to having to sit through something that is more of a linear presentation. It gives you a lot more flexibility in delivering parts of the message that are really poignant for each particular prospect. You're seeing a couple screenshots from a couple projects that we did locally. One is for Archstone. Again, it's a touch screen, multi-touch interactive, driving multiple screens, and so it's very experiential. Users sit in a room and they're really engaging the content in a way that they haven't been able to do as much as they can now with multi-touch and driving it from mobile devices, et cetera. The second one is something we did for Equity Residential at the West End. And there are two flavors of this. It's all database driven. They're trying to lease and manage the leasing of 1,400 apartments. And so the database, the back end is very in-depth for this project, and there's a lot of management of data, and there's a beautiful and intuitive front end that creates a really seamless user experience so that you can get in and very quickly browse through the availability in a very large portfolio of apartments and streamline a decision-making process in a way that's high touch and very user-friendly. Cinematic films are really an evolution of kind of the traditional virtual tour, something that's more of a literal walkthrough of an architecture or real estate development project. And really what we've done is gone back to the roots of filmmaking. Cinema has a rich 100-plus year history, and there are a lot of techniques, and there's kind of a language of cinema that's been proven to work over that 100 years. And so it's not just doing 3D animated fly-throughs and walkthroughs. It's a combination of photography, aerial footage, motion graphics, sound design, voiceover narration. These pieces are often story-driven. They tend to be emotive, and they're trying to really connect to the audience on a different level than just showing them the nuts and bolts of a project. And it's been proven to create kind of a deeper, longer lasting connection to a project when you can actually connect to somebody on multiple levels, delivering all the information and making them really feel something. And that's important in getting people to connect to projects, no matter what kind they are. They're highly polished. They're often customizable, so as a project evolves and grows over many years, these films can also grow and adapt with the project. A couple of examples that we're going to have available to you on a mini site at the end. The first one is the Thor Equities project called 693 Fifth Avenue. It's the Takashimaya building. It's a wonderful retail opportunity for people. And the film that accompanies it is very New York. It's very fast-paced. It's got a great music track. It's very dynamic use of motion graphics. And it's a really captivating way to get an audience to pay attention. It's a crowded market out there, and the film is one of the pieces that they're using in their marketing efforts. Again, they're using web. We did some mobile apps for them to deploy and spread the messaging as well. There's printed brochures and other collateral, as well as broker events and kind of your kind of standard marketing materials. And so, again, this is just one piece. It's very effective. And it takes on a tone that's appropriate for this project, for this client, in this location. Everything that we do, we produce in-house, and we think that's important for keeping the messaging on track with everything that we do. And I think it's important when looking for vendors or partners out there that it's a consideration. So if there's helicopter footage that we need, or more typically than not in the helicopter shooting the footage, making sure we're getting exactly what we need for the piece. The next film that's going to be available for you is something that we did for Fan Pier. So we worked with Joe Fallon and the Fallon companies to help really kind of build awareness of the Fan Pier project and tell a really big story in a couple of minutes, through using helicopter footage, animation, 3D rendering, photography, videography. And we also dovetailed the movie that we created with the actors that were used to portray potential tenants that were shot for their print piece. And so there's some synergy between all of the pieces in their campaign. And again, it interweaves motion graphics and really tells a very, very compelling story about a project that's very rich, has multiple phases, and is mixed use, and it's going to be delivered kind of in a building by building process. So this was a great first step to communicate with potential investors and banks and try to build some momentum. One building is built now. We've adapted the film several times. It's been a really instrumental piece in helping land some of their first tenants. Often when we're putting these productions together, it can be very Hollywood-esque, where we're doing really detailed and intricate and complex green screen shoots to add life to these pieces. So we may have a production shoot that green screens people. We may have actors and actresses filling spaces. It's really become much more accessible to people, and it creates a real great dynamic because it feels custom. It feels totally tailored for each particular space, as opposed to using library people and things that feel a little more computery. These feel much higher end, like television commercials or even short films you might see produced in Hollywood. And they're very effective, and they're very, very emotive. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through a case study that kind of wraps up all of these things into one. We've been doing a lot of work with Equity Office, and everything from the media wall you see in this initial slide to more targeted things like EBLAST and visualization, web tools, and interactives. And what's important here is that it's a custom and personalized process that we developed for them as a client. And that's how we approach every client. Laser focused and value driven. It's about really making sure that everything we do is going to, they're going to derive the most value from it and help them creatively differentiate their offerings from a very crowded marketplace. And often we're doing work in a kind of adaptive and nonlinear process. We have to be responsive to their needs, which may be changing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So that's often very important. So we touched earlier on the website we developed in the iPad app. If you want to check it out, you can go to equityofficeboston.com and you can test drive it on the web. You can also browse through that from an iPad, and it works in exactly the same manner. Again, gives you in-depth information, and they took an approach, through guidance from us and their PR company of let's be totally transparent. Let's change the game for leasing and give people all of the information up front and let them be a more informed potential tenant and partner to us. And it's really paying off. People appreciate being able to get the information up front and do some of the heavy lifting before they're involved in a leasing situation. We've also been dovetailing this in with EBLAST campaigns and other more traditional ways of reaching out to people. And again, it just creates this kind of seamless, transparent access to information. We've been doing a lot of virtual design builds, so when they have a tenant who's close and needs to be convinced that they will actually fit and this will be a great fit for their business, we're often doing very tailored renderings and other visualizations, animations, etc., to help demonstrate to them and to help them take that message and spread it internally and convince the people within their organization that this is the right fit. And again, it takes some of the uncertainty out of making a very, very important decision for them. So you see a couple of office renderings here that are really intended to help people understand, yes, I can kind of picture myself. I can take a test drive of the space without spending any construction dollars. And I'm going to feel confident that it's going to be the right solution for my company. And again, dovetailing it with traditional print media, with premiums, custom presentations, it's all about developing a campaign that's well thought out and strategic. Microsites for every property as well as a kind of portfolio-wide site. It's also a way that people can get just the information they're looking at when they want it. And we think all of these trends are really the way we see the business going, and you're going to see a lot more people developing mobile, using virtual design build, and taking a much more comprehensive approach that's dynamic and adaptive as opposed to sticking with the traditional means of marketing your properties and services. So that's kind of a quick overview of some of these trends. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me directly at robertmcleod@neoscape.com. We've also created a mini site for you to look at some of the material that was referenced in this discussion that wasn't available. So some of the films, renderings, and other solutions that we've produced for other clients are available for you to peruse on that website. It's been my pleasure today to present some of these trends to you and to show you some of the solutions that we've provided to our clients. And I hope that you enjoyed it. And again, Sandy, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Rob, thanks for a great presentation and showing us the innovations and marketing tools being used to promote and position property assets. Our next Solution Series program will be available on May 10th. Watch your email for NAIOP source or corporate e-newsletter for the program link. Thank you for listening to our session, and goodbye for now.